One day, the gates suddenly opened. The whole world was defeated, and monsters wreaked havoc on the Earth server. Countless people logged out, never to return. Only a few people who used hacking tools awakened supernatural abilities, and they were called the saviors of humanity. Among them, the main character Lee Hyun-wook, who was known as the Iron Emperor, was the last hope of mankind. However, when he was at the peak, Lee Hyun-wook was logged out of Earth. When he woke up, he found himself back in the past. But he went back to the time of his military service. Right now, Lee Hyun-wook had to lift the buoy up to the sky and endure the hellish training. Damn it, Lee Hyun-wook bit his teeth and lowered his head to the ground. He secretly moved a bullet from his pocket and put it in his mouth to chew. The system showed a message that the current weight of metal he could manipulate was 300 g. In the near future, almost all of humanity was wiped out, and blood flowed like rivers. He had to solo against a group of players from the Church of God. Unfortunately, this group was too strong and good at stealing and tricking. He was beaten to lose his teeth and died unwillingly. In the last moment, Lee Hyun-wook was hit by a big black guy with a huge rock on his face, and that was the end of his life. He never thought that he would be able to go back to the past like in a novel. Lee Hyun-wook was still chewing the bullet. The system congratulated him for finding the method to grow stronger. He had 10 minutes left to complete the metal consumption. The commanding officer over there was still constantly bullying everyone. He was so angry that he trembled. How the hell did he go back to the past? Now his skills were also back to the starting point. Well, that was fine, but why did he have to go back to the military service? He was treated like a dog, and the food was so bad that he couldn't smell it. Lee Hyun-wook was standing in line to eat when he was called by the platoon leader. He had to do something before eating. He was tired like a dog after training and was sent to do something else. The officer over there sneered at him, thinking that he was just useless trash. Lee Hyun-wook also remembered his name, the scum of the military, Oh Sang-guk. He pointed at him with his finger. He said that a rank F should at least know how to do some extra work. Lee Hyun-wook had thought in his previous life that he would never be able to surpass rank F. He was bitter, laughed at by the scum, but he couldn't fight back yet. Lee Hyun-wook silently glared at the officer. He was annoyed by his attitude and summoned a ring around his arm to attack him. Lee Hyun-wook easily dodged it and taunted him. He said that he would work if he had food. The reason he was confident was because there were many people watching. Oh Sang-guk also didn't dare to do anything too outrageous. He mocked him. A person who was involved in some rumors of abusing his power, how could he become a noble character in society in the future? Oh Sang-guk also stopped pretending, he shouted. The others should go and eat. Lee Hyun-wook told his friend to go and eat, and he didn't eat. He sneaked to the back and tried to calm himself. He could still bear this, it was nothing compared to what the bastard in the previous life did to him. Lee Hyun-wook was furious that bastard Gordon Tracy, if he had to stay longer for causing trouble, wouldn't be able to catch up with him. His system showed a message that he had completed the metal consumption, and now he could manipulate another 1 gram of metal. Lee Hyun-wook glanced at the notification. He pulled out a pile of spoons that he had just stolen. He couldn't let the whole world know that he could level up. While the people in the cafeteria had no spoons to eat, the protagonist calmly ate spoons outside. The system notification started to absorb metal. The consumption time was 13 seconds. It was estimated that after absorption, it would increase 1.25 grams of metal manipulation. Lee Hyun-wook held a knife. He estimated that an M7 knife weighed 140 grams. If he wanted to increase its weight to create an impact, he could only control one knife at the moment. The bullet shell increased by 1 gram, and the spoon also increased by 1.25 grams. At this rate, it would take him a long time to catch up with the time before he died. Lee Hyun-wook looked up at the watchtower. He felt a headache. He had only 3 days to prepare, and then he had to defeat the monster boss at level 1. He turned back to practice metal manipulation. 3 days later, at Station 5, Platoon 1, Battalion 3, Lee Hyun-wook was on guard with another person. Park Jun-mo wanted to chat with him, but the cold boy seemed to ignore him. Hyun-wook looked at the system notification. Then he turned to Jun-mo and asked if he believed him. Park Jun-mo didn't understand what was going on, but he also said yes. The protagonist confidently cocked his gun. At the same time, somewhere else, a spatial gate opened. The monsters fell out of the gate and prepared to destroy the Earth. At this time, the others were still sleeping. Lee Hyun-wook soloed with the monsters. He controlled a knife and stabbed a monster in the face. He had been here since the afternoon. He had been waiting for them all day, and finally they appeared. The monster that was stabbed just now stood up and glared at Lee Hyun-wook. He had never failed in an ambush before. Maybe it was because he was at level 1, so it was a bit difficult. This was his second chance, and he didn't like to repeat what he had done twice. The monsters rushed towards him and attacked. Hyun-wook controlled the knife and chopped off the heads of one after another. A red gem fell out. The protagonist picked up the gem and put it in his mouth and chewed it. It tasted terrible. Hyun-wook knew about the future and he needed to eat metal to become stronger. Mana would also be enhanced after absorbing metal. This meant that if he ate all the items he got from now on, this life would be easier. After eating the gem, he controlled the knife and turned back to destroy the monster formation. Hyun-wook threatened Jun-mo to shut up and not report the monster incident to his superiors. If the army found out, all the weapons here would fall into their hands. Hyun-wook used his skillful skills to kill dozens of monsters. There was a monster that wanted to take the opportunity to attack him from behind. Hyun-wook swung his weapon and chopped off the monster's head. Another red gem fell out and rolled around. He turned and stared at the rest. If anyone dared to attack secretly, he would eat them alive. Hyun-wook gradually spread fear to the monsters. They didn't dare to act rashly anymore. He fought and watched around for the boss of this group. It was a cunning bastard, a fox demon. Hyun-wook bent down and pretended to collect the red gems. He had welcomed it warmly like this, and it wouldn't miss this opportunity. As expected, the fox demon had been hiding in the tree. It pulled a ring on its neck and started to cast a spell. Hyun-wook smiled cunningly. He had been waiting for it since the afternoon. He picked up a stone and got into a fighting position. Meanwhile, the army on the hill still didn't know anything. After a move by the fox demon, a bunch of sharp thorns grew under Hyun-wook's feet. The fox demon thought it had killed him and looked up at the sky and laughed. But who knew that Hyun-wook was unharmed? He had somehow appeared next to the monster and threw the knife at it. The beast shaman dodged, and he chopped off the knife that Hyun-wook threw at him. He pretended to be panicked, and the beast shaman sneered at him. But when he was not paying attention, Hyun-wook controlled the knife to turn back towards the beast shaman. The knife almost reached his neck, but he caught it. He grinned and laughed. Hyun-wook did not expect that he could block his great sword. It seemed that he was really a loser in the past. Hyun-wook exploded like a firecracker. He dared to send a whole gang of goblins to hunt him down. He should not complain even if he got scratched. Come down here, I will take you all on. After exploding, Hyun-wook also felt that he was a bit too much. He did not know what to do now. The boss had appeared and fought directly with him, so the shrimps were also very eager. His system showed a warning that he had 40% mana left. Things had come to this point, Hyun-wook had no other choice. He had to eat everything and fall back. Even if it took time, he had to finish them all before returning to the station. Both sides were about to rush into each other and fight, when Hyun-wook heard the call of the guard Jun-mo. The beast shaman also noticed that, and he ordered the shrimps to attack Junmo. The guard did not know what was going on, he just screamed. Hyenwook told Junmo to lower his head, and he shot the beast shaman. Then he shot the other beasts one by one. When he turned around, the beast shaman and the rest had disappeared. They had run away. At the same time, the sound of the radio on his shoulder also rang. The army on the other side had started to move. They heard the gunshots and issued a notice. Hyenwook had no other choice but to report the situation. There was a barrier in the area, and the monsters were identified as goblins. After the first encounter, the goblins had left the current area. The fifth station had no casualties. The other side issued a notice asking Hyenwook's fifth station to go to the defensive position and wait for orders. Hyenwook knew that she would come soon. She was a knight of the anti-monster terrorist team, Lieutenant Seo Yunha. If she appeared like in the previous life, she would stop the gate and take away all the weapons, including the legendary equipment adamantium. In the past, this was the ultimate equipment, which made people call Hyenwook the Iron Emperor. If he missed this time, the next opportunity would have to wait for 4 more years. If that happened again, everything would go back to the previous life. He would have to wait again, so he had to finish the job before the backup team arrived. The goblins needed human lives, but they would not enter the city center at this time. For monsters that hunt in groups like goblins, the city density was too high. Suddenly, the sound from the radio came. The sixth station had been attacked by goblins. Hyenwook saw that the time had come. He shouted into the radio that he would go to help and hung up. He did not hear the cursing from the other end anymore. Junmo hugged Hyenwook's leg and begged him not to do something foolish against the order of the superior. He would not only be rumored to be imprisoned, but also be subject to martial law. Hyenwook did not listen. The Squad 6 only had mages or archers. They only had long-range players. They could not deal with the goblins. They would all die. Junmo still insisted on holding Hyenwook back. He could not do anything alone. Hyenwook did not agree. He was not alone. He had Junmo too. Junmo was speechless. Are you kidding me? Meanwhile, at Station 6, there was chaos. Many people had been killed. The commander still ordered Station 6 to defend their position with their lives. The monsters had sneaked deep inside. They were killing each other. Many people were bloody and wounded. They only knew how to hide in the box and wait for death. Suddenly, a bunch of small stones outside hit the glass door. 2 soldiers hiding inside were scared. The boss of this group was too smart. After this box was broken, they would also be dead. A corporal pointed a gun at his own face, intending to die now and save himself some trouble. The other one just cried. Suddenly, a voice from the radio came. The person on the radio told the second soldier Archer Park to aim at the light and shoot and stand still. The second soldier did not understand much, but he also did as the person on the radio said. He had no other way to do what the person on the radio said. He raised his bow and aimed straight at the light. The person on the other side of the radio was none other than Hyenwook. He wore a flashlight on his shoulder as a signal. He told the archer to stand still and focus on shooting. He would be the one to pull the trigger. Hyenwook controlled the trigger and pulled it. A rocket arrow flew out and hit the monster. Hyenwook was holding the monster that was burned. The system announced that he had just consumed 1% of mana. Hyenwook had found a way to save mana. Plus, the archer's firepower was very strong. The game was easy. The fire just now had attracted the attention of the king of the goblins and his minions. The Goblin King threw stones at Hyenwook. He jumped into the grass and dodged. Hyenwook ordered the archer to do the same as before. The archer obeyed and hurriedly prepared his bow. He raised his bow again towards the light. Heinwook was the one to pull the trigger again. One by one, the monsters were burned. The Goblin King gritted his teeth in anger. Heinwook's brothers, Junmo, was still hiding in the bushes. His task was only to send signals. Heinwook said he would only distract them. But it seemed that he was about to wipe them all out. Suddenly, a goblin saw Junmo. It raised its knife to chop him down. Heinwook arrived in time. He pulled the trigger and the goblin was killed. Junmo opened his mouth wide. Was Heinwook now and before the same person? Everything Heinwook did just now was to lure the Goblin King out. He still silently assessed the situation of the cunning boss. His mana was dropping to only 12%. The boss had not appeared yet. Did he wait for his army to fall one by one? Suddenly, Junmo's cry for help came from the radio. Heinwook ran over. The Goblin King had caught Junmo. He used him to threaten Heinwook. Heinwook pretended to drop his weapon and surrender. He sneered and controlled the trigger and shot. The Goblin King was hit and bled. He took the opportunity to rush up and throw a knife at the Goblin King who was fleeing. But the knife bounced off the monster. This beast wore a leather coat, so it was hard to hit. The system continued to warn that Heinwook's mana had dropped to 9%. The demon hunter ran for his life. He ran towards the gate. As he saw the demon hunter was about to enter the gate, Heinwook suddenly noticed that there was steel on his necklace. He did not hesitate to use his metal control skill to pull the monster back. His mana dropped to only 2%. Heinwook threw a knife and stabbed it straight into the face of the demon hunter. His mana ran out at the right time. The monster was killed. A golden light shot up and lit up a whole area of the sky. Heinwook cursed. The Lieutenant Seo Yunho was here already. Heinwook quickly searched for the stone on the monster's body. He just found it and put it in his mouth. When the army surrounded him, they pointed their guns and asked for his name. Heinwook raised his hands and confessed his name honestly. Seo Yunha passed by the gate and saw that the boss had been killed. She was also surprised. How could 4 ordinary soldiers kill a boss? That was unbelievable. Moreover, all the monsters were injured in the same way. This must have been done by one person. Heinwook was placed on a stretcher and taken back. The system announced that he had successfully absorbed the legendary item adamantium. It took 9 hours to absorb all the metal. Heinwook covered his face and smiled happily. The system added that the metal he had just absorbed was a type of enhancement. After absorbing it he would have some magic skills similar to the enhancement. After absorbing the metal, the amount of metal increased, but the estimate was still uncertain. Seo Yunha also wondered, how could Heinwook still smile? Heinwook was overjoyed. The system of showed a message. After absorbing the legendary item, a rare skill had appeared. Now he could detect all the metal in the range of his control skill. Finally this day came. Finally Heinwook had regained it. He could feel the magnetic field of the metal around him resonating. Today was the day that the great Emperor of Zombies officially came back. A few days later, the rumor of the gate at the army camp flew high and far. The story of a rank F private who appeared with a huge sword and killed the goblins. However, many people did not believe that rumor, such as this young man, Sergeant Oh Sanguk. A mage of the Special Magic Intelligence Unit, the commander of the 2nd Squad. His subordinate informed him, but he bullied him and got angry. Oh Sanguk turned to the fat man next to him and asked if he could tear the goblins apart with his bare hands. Could he bring 3 other people to attack a gate? The fat man firmly answered, no. This fat man was Oh Sanguk's close friend, Private Lee Won-suk, a rank D madman of the close combat team, considered as rank C. None of them had witnessed the rank F group killing the monster, so they thought they were just the ones left behind by the goblin horde. But if a rank F really went crazy, it would be a threat to the military order. The fat man also understood what his superior wanted. At the lieutenant colonel's room, Heinwook was summoned. He was sweating in his heart. If everything had gone well, they could have turned a blind eye, but why did they call him? The people in the lieutenant colonel's room right now besides Seo Yunho were Lieutenant Lee Min-hee, a rank C mage, and the lieutenant colonel, Major Kim Kang-seok, a rank B player. The lieutenant sternly questioned Heinwook if he really disobeyed orders and deliberately delayed and pushed back the first round of the gate. This lieutenant was nicknamed the Mountain King Namsan, ranked 166 in Korea. If you say something wrong now, you will surely be suspended immediately. Heinwook took a deep breath to calm himself. He had to be as calm as possible to get a room. He bravely admitted that he saw the gate explode while he was in position and reacted immediately. The battalion commander asked him back. He had read the report, but he still didn't understand how a rank F soldier like Heinwook could survive a troll attack. Heinwook swallowed it. The pressure was terrible. If he backed down now, his military career would be over. He smirked and complained that he felt cheated. It felt like he had been tricked. Lieutenant Lee Min-hee was about to warn him, but the battalion commander stopped him. He wanted to hear more. Heinwook took the opportunity and asked the battalion commander. Every time they trained, they emphasized that even if their rank was low, if they applied the monster strategy of the Corps, they could fight the trolls even if they were rank D or even rank E. Heinwook repeated the lesson. According to the battalion commander's training, even a rank F like him would struggle against a troll, but a goblin was not impossible. He did disobey the commander's order, but if he hadn't helped Station 6, all the staff would have died. He felt satisfied after saying that. After the rational part, he switched to the emotional part. Heinwook repeated the words of the battalion commander who taught him before. That's why every soldier was a soldier, no matter what rank. He should always fight with all his might as a true soldier. Heinwook said the emotional part without shame. The battalion commander was the person he always respected. He had used what he had learned and tried his best to do it with the staff when their lives were threatened. The only reason he could confidently move on when he was despised as a rank F was because of the battalion commander's words. Heinwook seized the chance and bowed his head to explain. That's why he felt betrayed when the battalion commander denied that. He felt like his whole career was a lie. That's why he felt cheated. Heinwook knew very well that Kim Kang-seok, the battalion commander, had joined the army as a second lieutenant when the gate started to open. He almost died in a battle with an orc, but he returned to the army without hesitation and became a core member of the anti-monster squad in the early days. In other words, he was a true soldier. Heinwook was extremely confident. He said that he had taken his words as a creed and risked his life for his teammates. How dare he suspend him? As expected, the platoon leader Huang Chi was furious. He patted Heinwook's shoulder and officially appointed him as a junior officer. Heinwook's system showed a notification. It congratulated the player for meeting the special condition and obtaining a new skill. The skill was called Iron Skin. It used mana to temporarily strengthen a part of the body. Heinwook was speechless. Yuna and Min-hee stood on the other side and could only be helpless. Heinwook was sweating profusely as the platoon leader looked at him. He didn't think things would come to this point. Did he hear it wrong? At the 3rd Regiment, 1st Platoon Station, training room. Heinwook was lifting weights and cursing. He angrily threw the weights down. He had stepped on his own shit. He suddenly bought a rope to tie himself. Damn it. At that time, Lee Min-hee had also persuaded the platoon leader to withdraw the decision. There had never been a junior officer with rank F in the history of the anti-terrorism team. Thanks to the squad leader Lee Min-hee, Heinwook had time to speak. He would consider it, but he should live low-key for a while to avoid attracting attention. While he was annoyed, 2 guys who wanted to die came to provoke him. The fat guy came up to him and asked him if he was done with the weights. He replied that he was not done yet. The fat guy stared at him and his attitude changed completely. He lifted the weight with one hand and mocked Hyun-wook. He said that he was famous recently but could only lift so much weight. It was really humiliating. Thanks to the fat guy's loud mouth, the others in the training room also paid attention to the situation here. They all listened with interest. Hyun-wook looked over and recognized one of them as the Trasho Sanguk. He knew that guy would bully him publicly again like in his previous life. It was annoying. Hyun-wook stroked his hair to cool his head. He just wanted to live humbly and not attract attention, but it was really troublesome. He turned around and challenged the fat guy to a solo fight. The whole regiment was buzzing with the rumor that Lee Won-suk and the rank F soldier Hyun-wook were about to fight. The crowd gathered around the ring. The two protagonists were also there. The fat guy seemed to be sure of his victory. He did not hesitate to insult Hyun-wook. The whistle signaled the start. The fat guy rushed up and punched Hyun-wook repeatedly. He raised his hand to block. He tried to dodge every punch from the fat guy. He almost got hit in the face, but luckily he reacted in time to save his handsome face. Hyun-wook hooked his finger to provoke him. The fat guy was furious. Just then, Lieutenant Cheon Myung-ho, the tactical training officer of the Black Tiger Unit, also came in. He was lured by a soldier to watch the match between Hyun-wook and the fat guy. The officer next to him kept talking incessantly, praising the blows as if they were heaven sent. The lieutenant did not pay much attention to the officer's words. He stood outside and observed the situation. The audience below was impatient. One of them shouted at the fat guy, telling him not to hold back and to fight quickly. The others also urged the fat guy to fight seriously, and not to drag it out, as they had lost all their bets. The fat guy on the stage was also under a lot of pressure. He had not given up anything. He felt heavy as if he was wearing lead. It was hard to move, let alone fight. Hyun-wook had been waving his hand up and down with his metal control ability. He had made the metal on the fat guy's shoes constantly press him down. That's why the fat guy could not hit him at all. He flailed his arms and legs non-stop. The fat guy must have felt like he was fighting and moving in a swamp. Hyun-wook did not have to do anything. He just stood there smiling and was about to win. The fat guy suddenly shouted to stop. He said his legs felt weird. Hyun-wook pretended not to know and asked him what happened. He also added some taunts. The fat guy was furious. He tightened his stomach and butt muscles and exploded his inner strength. His clothes were torn. The people below were amazed. The fat guy used the body enhancement skill of the madman, the armor skill. He breathed like a bull. Hyun-wook also got serious. The lieutenant standing below wanted to stop the fight. This was no longer a normal match with body enhancement like this. However, he saw that Hyun-wook's eyes did not show any fear. He decided to wait and see. The fat guy and Hyun-wook looked like a fierce troll fighting with a leopard that deliberately hid its fangs and waited for the opportunity. The lieutenant found the match interesting. The officer next to him was excited. He kept praising the fat guy as not an ordinary D-level, but a first-time body enhancer. He witnessed the fat guy wanting to end the match quickly. After enhancing, he was much faster than before. He dashed and punched Hyun-wook, throwing him against the wall. The crowd below was noisy. They cheered for the fat guy. No one knew that only the fat guy felt like he had punched iron. Just now, Hyun-wook had used the body enhancement skill. He turned part of his arm into steel to block the blow. Now it was his turn to counterattack. The fat guy was crazy. He attacked again. Hyun-wook dodged and avoided. It was a pity to use such a good skill with a guy like this. Hyun-wook used the body enhancement skill on part of his leg and kicked the fat guy's calf. The fat guy screamed in pain and fell down. Heinwook took the opportunity and punched the fat guy's face repeatedly. A guy who was arrogant just because he had strength was nothing but a stinky ant. He wanted to teach someone a lesson, but he did not know who was teaching whom. The audience stood below in disbelief. They could not believe their eyes. Lieutenant Cheon Myung-ho felt like he had seen the light of the party, the sun of truth shining through his heart. The leopard finally showed its fangs and bit the troll's neck. The lieutenant was still waiting. Heinwook over there was still punching the fat guy's face non-stop. The lieutenant was waiting for him to make the final blow. However, Heinwook was grabbed by the fat guy's shirt and lifted up. He was about to throw him hard to the ground. The fat guy was about to grab Heinwook and slam him to the ground, but he was caught in a chokehold by Heinwook's martial arts skill. The fat guy could not move, and if he kept smashing his opponent down, he would destroy his own arm. The commander was still silently observing. With a madman in a body-enhancing state, that chokehold would normally not work. On the other side, the fight between the two was still tense. The fat guy tried to escape from Heinwook's chokehold. He raised his other hand to punch him, but Heinwook quickly removed the finger that was holding his neck. He dodged the blow and changed his position to grab the fat guy's hair and strangle him from behind. The commander silently praised the move to switch to a chokehold. That was the way to do it. If he pressed hard on the artery in his neck, it would be dangerous, because the madman only focused on enhancing his body and muscles. The fat guy was strangled by Heinwook and could not escape. He tried to pry his hand off but failed. Heinwook sneered. He had used his body-enhancing skill on his two arms. There was no way this fat guy could escape. The system warned that the range of body enhancement had exceeded the current limit, but Heinwook did not stop. He continued to strangle the fat guy harder. The system warned again. The crowd below also started to buzz. One of his men turned to Oh Sang-guk. "Don't you want to stop them? There will be a murder if they keep fighting." Heinwook ignored his eyes that were red with blood and his nose that was bleeding. He did not let go. His eyes stared straight at Oh Sang-guk behind him. "This is a warning for you, you bastard." Sang-guk was sweating profusely. The fat guy was already a bit unconscious. He was about to lose to a loser. The fat guy clenched his teeth and tried again. He was the ace of the next generation. He could not lose so miserably. The fat guy enhanced his body again. The commander on the other side was also excited. That was surprising. A level D enhanced his body twice. But if he could not escape from that chokehold, the result would be self-strangulation. On the other side, the fierce battle was still going on. Heinwook also tightened his grip. The fat guy screamed to get out but could not. He tried too hard and failed. He ran out of breath and collapsed. The commander was ecstatic. He guessed right. Heinwook was a real beast. The others came to check on the fat guy. Luckily he was still breathing, just fainted. Junmo happily ran over to hug Heinwook, congratulating him on his victory. Heinwook did not care. He pushed Junmo away, his eyes still staring at the bastard Sang-guk standing behind him, not saying a word. The commander Cheon Myung-ho came over and asked his name. Heinwook took a military stance and reported his name. He also wondered why this guy was here. The commander also greeted him. He introduced himself as belonging to the Tactical Training Center of the Black Tiger Unit. He had just watched his fight, so he gave him a black card and invited him to join the Special Combat Unit. The others were also buzzing. The Black Tiger Unit was the strongest unit in the anti-monster terrorist team. Heinwook did not hesitate to refuse. He was just a level F player, not suitable for this place. The commander Cheon did not agree. The level was just a standard set by ordinary people. They needed a strong fighter like Heinwook. Heinwook cried in his heart. He was in pain and he fell from one side to the other. Everyone forced him to stay in the army, which was a harsh environment. But the commander asked him again if he would join. Heinwook looked sadly at the black card. He was sure that later when he faced the villain army, he would be held back by the Special Corps. He took the card and told himself that he would think again, and now he found an excuse to keep his distance. Sanguk stood on one side and saw this recruitment scene. He was so angry that he trembled, his veins bulging. In the platoon leader's room, the platoon leader and the commander sat and talked and drank tea together. The platoon leader asked the commander if there was any problem with the Black Tiger unit lately. The commander Cheon sipped his tea and said, they were always in trouble because of the lack of manpower. The platoon leader Kim Kong-suk also understood. These days, as long as they reached level C, the association would recruit them, so there was no other way. They trained talents with all their heart, but they were all taken away by the outside. The two of them shared the same fate. They looked at each other and understood. The platoon leader asked the commander if he came here for the platoon chief Choi Young-jun. The commander also happily replied, yes. Choi Young-jun was on vacation, but thanks to that, he found an interesting soldier. The platoon leader was startled and stopped drinking tea. Hyun-wook was being chased by Junmo around the yard. This kid kept clinging and asking him to teach him how to become stronger. Hyun-wook was already tired to death. Their rude actions were seen by the platoon leader standing in the room. He took out his phone and contacted someone, asking him to find out what Hyun-wook did before he joined the army. He did not want to do that, but it was because the commander Cheon had made him greedy. The city was bustling with people. A child went with his mother and chased a monkey because he was playing. The animal ran into a small alley. The boy followed the monkey, but the monkey he saw was not a normal monkey, but a scary monster with claws and teeth. There was not only one, but thousands of them came out of the gate. At the platoon's weapon warehouse, Hyun-wook was being guided by Yunha. The platoon leader had recognized his merit and awarded him a weapon and gave him a leave. But the squad leader did not believe he could do it. Hyun-wook cursed that in his previous life, the squad leader was also difficult, and this life was no different. Hyun-wook raised his voice and said, whether he believed it or not, he did it anyway. Yuna turned around and said, don't be so confident. The goblins at the gate were all killed by the same sword stroke, meaning that a guard had stopped the first attack by himself. Hyun-wook did not seem to care much about Yuna's words. He lifted a sword and said he chose this one. Yuna told him to choose carefully. Don't choose like the teachers were forcing him. He should think carefully and then choose. Hyun-wook swung the sword up and down. He was very happy with this sword. This sword was the Cloud Sword, which could absorb water and create a fog to blind the enemy. Now this sword looked like a junk item, but later, Sergeant Choi Young-jun was honored as the Holy Sword thanks to this sword. The real name of this sword was Cloud Master Assassin. In the Dangun mythology. The three weather gods came down to the lower world with Wanwong and bestowed him the Wind Master, the Rain Master, and the Cloud Master. The sentence is about a god who controls the clouds, a cloud master, and his sword called the Dark Hand, which can do many things. The Cloud Master's dark hand is understood as the blade hidden in the clouds, or in other words, it is the thunder attack. If he knows how to use its potential, he can use the power of lightning to raid a medium-sized monster dungeon by himself. Hyun-wook is very satisfied with this sword. The combination of steel and thunder is the best. This time he will take this sword. Yuna complains that he has such a terrible achievement but only takes a thin sword like that. Hyun-wook still insists on his decision, and suddenly the alarm bell rings. The whole military area is alarmed at the Itaewon Gate. Yuna looks at Hyun-wook and finds it strange. How can he be so calm, as if he knew this beforehand? The army quickly gathers. The Changhwa Association wearing silver armor also arrives. Their clothes and weapons are all very expensive. Just selling a coat can buy a building in Gangnam. Hyun-wook also commanded a small army. He reminds his subordinates to be careful. Even the small monsters can cause more casualties than the oak battle. They mainly use needles and poison to attack. He forbids rolling up the sleeves of the combat uniform when on the battlefield. A soldier at the head of the line hurriedly pulls down his sleeve. He doesn't understand why he really has to be so careful. Hyun-wook asks him back if he wants to be poked in the eye by a kobold. The soldier is silent and doesn't dare to ask anything more. Hyun-wook reminds everyone again, to prepare for the poison gas, remember to check to ensure easy wearing of the gas mask in an emergency. Some soldiers from other squads come from somewhere, they compete to mock a trash army that also has to discuss the battle plan. Anyone who looks at it thinks that the support squad is racing to join the fight. The soldiers in Hyun-wook's squad bow their heads and don't dare to argue. Hyun-wook is annoyed, he turns around and snaps at the two guys, doesn't check the gas mask and runs around like crazy. The kobolds often leave their territory in the dungeon raids to attack. The two guys don't care at all, they are confident that they are experienced fighters so they don't take this seriously. The two guys mock and then leave. Hyun-wook looks back at his army and sees that everyone is depressed. He clenches his teeth and shouts at everyone to be serious. He makes a speech to boost the morale of the soldiers. They have heard those mocking words so many times, now they are in a real situation where they can die at any time, this is not the time to be discouraged. The soldiers in Hyun-wook's squad stand still and listen to the orders. Hyun-wook continues to instruct, the cobalt monsters are quite small, so the motion sensors must be attached to all the sewer exits and narrow paths. He ordered the soldiers to complete the mission in 20 minutes, and the soldiers quickly divided the work. After the other soldiers left, only Hyun-wook and Junmo were moving some boxes. Junmo also noticed that Hyun-wook was a bit sensitive today. Hyun-wook stared at Junmo and remembered his past life. When Hyun-wook was about to ask Junmo what he had just said, suddenly an arrow pierced his neck. Hyun-wook fell to the ground and some kobolds jumped out. They emitted a lot of toxic gas and many soldiers managed to pull out their gas masks and put them on. But these monkeys were too fast and dangerous. They jumped into the toxic smoke and bit and tore many soldiers. Hyun-wook was still lying on the ground, and he couldn't pull out the arrow stuck in his neck. Suddenly, the boss of the monkeys appeared behind him. It stabbed a knife in his face, but luckily the knife only grazed him. Someone had come to save him, and Hyun-wook's face was cut from his forehead to his ear. The person who came was Junmo, and he wanted to give Hyun-wook a gas mask. Hyun-wook told him to run away, and they struggled for a while until Junmo's head was knocked off by the monster. Hyun-wook was desperate and screamed. In his previous life, Junmo died because he saved him from the kobold monster. Before the kobolds came, he had ordered Junmo to take the members of the platoon out of the combat area. He would send a combat signal to Junmo later. This was Hyun-wook's strategy. In another area, reports were sent in a hurry. Delta Team reported. Areas 1 and 3 had no one reporting. Epsilon Team also reported. Areas 4, 5, and 6 had no survivors. Gamma Team reported. No one survived in the first phase of the Red Battlefield campaign. Beta Team reported that they had found a nest of kobolds in Area 2, Sub-Area B9, estimated to have about 200 kobolds. The army commanded a strategic ambush. They advanced into the magic circle in Area A, and after signaling, the soldiers broke in together. They erected shields and activated the inner magic circle and waited for the order from above. The kobolds saw the intruders and rushed to attack. The army waited for the monkeys to get close and then signaled to fire. A bunch of fire from the magic circle sprayed out and burned a lot of kobolds. At this time, Hyun-wook's team was still busy installing sensors. Lieutenant Lee Min-hee came to check the situation and asked, "What are you doing?" Hyun-wook respectfully answered that he was installing a motion sensor according to the instructions and marking its position with aluminum tape. Min-hee complained that it was too expensive, and told him not to worry too much because the Changhua Association had to send reinforcements just to deal with the Kobold Gate. Platoon 1 would depart in 20 minutes, so the support team had to provide a detox kit or a supply of antidote. Hyun-wook repeated the mission of the support team. They received from the platoon leader that they had to prevent the monsters from running to the residential area in the rear. Hyun-wook deliberately shouted so loud that he attracted a lot of attention. Min-hee didn't want to lose face and he clenched his teeth and mocked him. The platoon leader only treated you well once and now you do whatever you want, you have no survival experience at all. They argued for a while until someone came to look for him. The pink-haired girl was Sergeant Choi Seona. She was a level C player who specialized in healing. Min-hee, who was arrogant, also changed his attitude and patted Hyun-wook's shoulder and smiled. Hyun-wook smiled secretly in his heart. This was the weakness of Lieutenant Min-hee. Because his crush appeared, he became less aggressive. Min-hee shyly asked Seona if there was anything. Seona just remembered the main thing and she said that the platoon leader asked for Hyun-wook. Hyun-wook wondered why he was called. At the same time, Yuna was watching the situation on Hyun-wook's side with binoculars. Seona told him to go meet the platoon leader, and she would take care of installing the sensors. Hyun-wook was annoyed that he was running out of time. What the hell was the platoon leader thinking? Yuna's group was still on the roof, ready for combat. A soldier who was itching to shoot said they were the direct attack force under the platoon leader's command. Maybe that's why they were summoned for the kobold attack. Yuna put down the binoculars. They were just soldiers who had to follow the orders of their superiors. At the temporary headquarters of the platoon leader, Hyun-wook met the platoon leader and Lieutenant Cheon. He greeted them respectfully, but he still wondered what the platoon leader wanted from him. The platoon leader looked at him sternly. He wanted to test him once. Since Choi Young-jun was on vacation, he would temporarily take over the role of commanding the first squad and carry out the mission of supporting the attack at the gate. Hyun-wook was surprised. The guy who never cared about him in his previous life just said what? He didn't have time for this. Was the platoon leader drunk? Hyun-wook tried to persuade him. Since he was assigned to this squad, he only performed support and backup missions. He couldn't accept putting the lives of the members of the first squad in such a dangerous test. It wasn't even a training session, but a real combat situation. The platoon leader just looked at him coldly and said, "This was an order." Hyun-wook clenched his teeth in anger, but he didn't dare to speak. Just then, the radio announced that the kobold boss had left the nest. Hyun-wook also heard the announcement. The kobolds would soon attack the support squad. If he didn't leave right now, the defense line behind would be breached. He made up his mind. He had to get out of here as soon as possible. Hyun-wook told the platoon leader that he had something to say. Outside, Yuna had been watching Hyun-wook with binoculars. She saw him run like a madman after leaving the command room. Hyun-wook shouted to the support squad to be careful of the poison gas. The red alert also sounded, and a cloud of toxic smoke spread everywhere. Hyun-wook couldn't predict that the kobolds would come much faster than he remembered. Earlier, when he was in the room, Hyun-wook confided to the platoon leader. He heard that the platoon leader had lost all the members of his unit in the first mission. It was hard to believe that he came from the support army and was treated like a lowly soldier. But now the platoon leader ordered him to join a real battle, just to test him. Hyun-wook asked the platoon leader back, did he also consider the ordinary soldiers as disposable items? The battalion commander was startled by the collision. He denied it and then turned the car to order him to follow the platoon attack under his command. Hyun-wook interrupted the battalion commander's heroic declaration, saying that if it was the battalion commander's order, he would obey. But who knew what was in his heart? He couldn't say that he knew the future. Hyun-wook continued to say that he lacked combat experience, especially in leading a platoon he had never contacted, and there was a high chance of casualties. He was very grateful that the battalion commander trusted him, but if the price to pay was the lives of his comrades, he asked to resist the order. The battalion commander was silent and bowed his head without saying anything. Lieutenant Cheon standing next to him warned Hyun-wook that disobeying orders during wartime would face the death penalty. Hyun-wook of course knew this, but if he didn't go now, everyone in the rear would die. The battalion commander, who had been silent for a while, also spoke up. He withdrew the order today. Hyun-wook would perform the original mission in the support squad as planned. However, as a true soldier, the punishment for resisting the order would be executed in the future and each individual would bear the consequences. Hyun-wook ran and cursed. He put on a gas mask. Damn military ancestor. Hyun-wook took out the sword in the bag. He poured some water on it. The vision was completely disabled by the gas. Hyun-wook silently prayed that Junmo would take the others away. Contrary to Hyun-wook's wishes, Junmo did not take people away and even brought troops to support the other team. He told everyone to quickly put the wounded in the military box and retreat. The pink-haired girl Seonho was also on the battlefield. She was shaking and couldn't move. Junmo urged her to hurry up and heal, but she was too scared to do it. He was also shaking. His hand holding the gun was shaking. Seonho was only 20 years old. He knew this was her first time participating in the battle after being assigned to this team, but he was also just a grunt in this support squad. What else could he do? Not only the others but also ran out of bullets and couldn't resist. Junmo also had a headache. Did they have to die here? Suddenly he thought of Hyun-wook. Junmo followed the example of the main character and ordered the support squad. The kobolds were attracted by the glowing objects. He would use a flash attack to attract the monsters and then the whole platoon would go with the sergeant and take the wounded away from here. Immediately the others heard Junmo's order and were also stunned. Junmo still insisted on driving everyone away. They had to get to the evacuation area, where they would meet the Changhua Association. Junmo knew that his electronic skills couldn't kill even the weakest monster, but in the end he was able to use it to save everyone. Junmo ran with a glowing hammer in a different direction. The monsters were attracted by the light in his hand and followed him. Junmo shouted loudly for everyone to run. He believed that he did the right thing. If Hyun-wook was here, he would also do the same. He decided to use his body as bait. Suddenly, the monsters chasing after Junmo were smashed by a strike. Hyun-wook arrived in time to save him. He used his cloud sword to absorb water and create a mist shield that neutralized the poison gas within the range of the mist. Hyun-wook called out to Junmo and thanked him for surviving. Junmo was moved to tears. He said that thanks to Junmo, Hyun-wook could now enjoy this feast by himself. He would eat them all. Hyun-wook swung his sword and killed a bunch of Koban monsters. The red gems fell out like rain. He looked at them with envy. He couldn't eat them right away because of Junmo. He fought for a while, but it was still just shrimp. The boss hadn't shown up yet. Suddenly, there was a loud roar. The monsters turned around and ran in the opposite direction. Hyun-wook shouted at Junmo to run. Their squad was in danger on the other side. The gas hadn't cleared yet. The visibility was difficult. They couldn't help them like this. Yuna put on a mask. She ordered her subordinates to stay in their current position and cooperate with the Changhua team to snipe the kobolds. They had to prevent them from leaving the toxic gas area and approaching the civilians. Yuna also jumped into the smoke after putting on the mask. She needed to check a few things. Hyun-wook's actions were like he knew everything already. Seonho was crying non-stop. There were too many dead and injured people around. The barrel that protected them also started to crack. The boss's magic was too strong. Some soldiers were trying to keep the barrel from breaking, but it was useless. The barrel shield had cracked open. The kobolds were pouring in. Behind the monsters was Hyun-wook. He threw his sword straight at the boss. The boss tilted his body and dodged the sword. The sword changed direction and followed the boss to the end. Hyun-wook's sword slashed the tank on the monster's back. A little bit of poison gas leaked out. The monster was annoyed. He ordered his minions to retreat. They lined up and shot arrows at Hyun-wook. He used his sword to deflect the arrows. He defended and fought to protect Junmo. Heinwook used his metal control skill to make the arrows turn around and shoot back at the monsters. The system warned that the M7 sword he threw at the boss earlier had lost control. But now Heinwook didn't pay attention to that, he was struggling with the remaining shrimp. These bastards followed the orders of the boss and attacked everyone. If he kept attacking like this, he would scare them away, and buy more time for the others. If he took Junmo to attack the boss, it would be too dangerous. Heinwook ordered Junmo to retreat to the barrel, and they turned and ran for their lives. The monsters behind them continued to shoot arrows. Heinwook used his metal control skill to neutralize them. They successfully returned to the barrel with the other soldiers. Inside, it was chaos, and the wounded had no one to help. The healer was in shock, and if they continued like this, the whole army would die. Heinwook came to Siona and told her to calm down. This was an urgent situation and they had to act. After a while, Siona finally calmed down, and she started to heal the wounded. Although the deputy squad leader's condition was not good, he lost a lot of blood, but Siona would do her best to save him. Heinwook used his metal control skill to take the knives of everyone. He would make the monkeys outside pay. Somewhere, a woman with a poisonous spider on her shoulder sat in a fancy car. She received a call and then asked the driver to drive straight to Itaewon. Heinwook went solo with the kobolds with a knife. He determined the location of the sensor and looked around. The best prey was the one that came to the hunting ground by itself. He marked and installed the sensor at the position he wanted. In the center of this area, the main area A was commanded by the deputy squad leader. The leader would control from behind, just find him and the game would end. Heinwook used his metal detection skill to search. If there was any metal he didn't know outside area A, it was the boss. Heinwook controlled the knives to stab the kobolds that were hiding. One knife went straight to the boss at the back. The boss used magic to block Heinwook's knife. After determining the position of the boss, he controlled the other knives to aim at him. The boss screamed. He used magic to simultaneously disable Heinwook's knives. He tried to control the knives back, but they were stuck. The system warned that the M7 knife was heavier than the weight that could be controlled. The other small monsters took the opportunity to shoot arrows at Heinwook. He raised his hand to block the arrows. The boss ordered the monsters to rush up. Heinwook thought he would be hit like in his previous life, but this time he had the body enhancement skill, so he was not hurt by the arrows. Heinwook called the knives back and controlled them to spin, creating a big whirlwind that swept away the shrimp monsters. The last one left was the boss. He was a black mage, and now he would settle with him. The boss clenched his teeth and spat out poison. Heinwook used the sword cloud to protect himself from the poison. He used his metal sensing skill to sense the environment around him. If he was careless and swung his sword like last time, he would be caught by him. He had to attack carefully. He wondered why the boss didn't do anything. But as soon as he got up, he realized that the black mage had used magic to control his legs. He had just stood up when he fell flat on the ground. The magic controller beast wrapped around one of his legs and pulled him towards it. Heinwook screamed in pain. The beast threw him straight into the poisonous smoke. When it was feeling triumphant, Heinwook came back. Thanks to his body enhancement skill, his leg was not hurt. He was a bit annoyed by now. How many times had this damned monkey made him suffer today? The beast continued to emit poison gas. It teleported to another direction. In no time, it appeared behind Heinwook. It stabbed its sword at him, but he dodged it nimbly. Heinwook was angry. This bastard was playing dirty tricks. As if he touched a sore spot, Heinwook went mad. He slashed his sword down on the beast's head. Heinwook also activated his body enhancement skill on his leg and kicked the beast's face hard. The beast flew away and rolled on the ground. Heinwook had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Since the first night after he returned to the past, he had been thinking of how to get revenge on the backstabbers like this monkey. The beast's mask was broken by the kick. Now it could not use magic anymore. It was time to finish it off. Heinwook controlled a series of knives to stab the beast's body. The poison gas container on its back shattered. The beast was severely wounded. Heinwook came close to it and grabbed its face. He had hated this thing for a long time. Because of it, he had to live like a cripple for years in his previous life. The swords he used to stab the beast earlier were the swords of his teammates that it had killed in his previous life. Heinwook stabbed his cloud sword into the beast's body. The system showed a message: Cloud Sword is absorbing the life force of the monster. Heinwook did not let go. He used another knife to stab the beast's head. This was the price for the scar on his face in his previous life. The beast was tortured and died. Finally, the first knot in the past that had caused Heinwook pain for a long time was changed. An item dropped. The system showed a message: you have received the Inferno Demon Medal. It is the medal of the Hellfire that hides the power of the demon race. It is one of the high-level items on the list of the holy medals. Heinwook was stunned. He held the medal in his hand. How did this thing appear here? It was the item of that guy. His undead army was like hell for the living. He was one of the most terrifying villains of humanity, the Necromancer. Although he still did not find out anything clear about him, he knew that he had a non-growth trait like him. Because of him, ever since he returned to the past, he had to hide the truth that even though he was level F, he could still grow stronger. Non-growth trait was the characteristic that developed in a unique way for that person, not through training and fighting. In his previous life, after Heinwook ended the fierce battle with the Necromancer, with a narrow victory at the Golem workshop, the most he got was a replica of Inferno, a restored item. But this time, he was holding the real thing. There were still too many things he did not know. As the poison gas dissipated, Heinwook opened his mouth to swallow Inferno, but suddenly Yuna appeared from behind. She pointed her sword at him and asked, "Who are you?" Heinwook was startled and nervous. How much did she see in the battle just now? At that moment, someone else arrived. She was the woman who was sitting in the car with the spider earlier. She was Hainoyu, the head of the Soul Strategy Department of the Manhwa Society. Heinwook was caught off guard and quickly put his stuff in his bag. Yuna asked him what he was hiding, but he hastily denied it. Hainoyu had witnessed Heinwook's entire battle, and she also recognized Yuna. She was the third daughter of the Knight Commander. Hainoyu ignored Yuna's warning and approached Heinwook. She gave him a business card and told him to contact her. Hainoyu was the third daughter of the Manhwa Society leader, a level A player. Heinwook was stunned and did not react. Hainoyu asked him if he did not know her. Heinwook clenched his teeth. How could he not know her? Among the villains who exterminated humanity, he could never forget this Hainoyu. In his previous life, Yuna sacrificed herself to become a shield for him, and this Hainoyu killed Yuna. Back to the present, Hainoyu was still trying to tempt Heinwook. Yuna shouted that this was a military combat zone and wanted to drive her away. Hainoyu exhaled a breath of annoyance and told Yuna to call her the head of the strategy department of the Manhwa Society. The two girls stared at each other and sparks flew. Heinwook could feel the atmosphere between them was terrifying. Just then, another car arrived. It was the platoon leader. He got out of the car and looked around. He saw that all the monsters and the boss had been killed. Heinwook was shocked and nervous. How did the platoon leader arrive so soon? He prayed for help. The platoon leader Kim Kangseok bowed politely and greeted Hainoyu. They were very grateful for the help of the Manhwa Society, but this was a military combat zone. Even if she came from the Manhwa Society, it would be very troublesome to enter the combat zone without permission. The platoon leader politely asked Hainoyu to leave. Hainoyu flicked her business card and grumbled. She acted like no one knew she was a soldier. she was very stubborn. Hainoyu kissed the business card in her hand and then stuffed it into Hyun-wook's body. She reminded him to remember to contact her. After Hainoyu left, the platoon leader Kim Kang-seok directly appointed him as the acting combat squad leader at the Cobalt Gate. The top priority was to ensure the survival of the people and recruit new members for the team. Hyun-wook did not understand what the platoon leader was thinking. The platoon leader sternly ordered him to handle everything here after completing the report. Hyun-wook obeyed. Yuna was still staring at him. A week later, at the 1st Company of the Demon Slayer Regiment, Hyun-wook's 3 Inferno Demon medals had completed the metal absorption. The weight of the metal he could control increased by 499 grams. A space was forming in his stomach. Hyun-wook hugged the toilet from morning until now. The system also warned that due to the appearance of a new space, Hyun-wook would feel pain. It's been a week, but this body is still too weak, so the pain feels more throbbing. Junmo went into the bathroom to find him. He saw Hyun-wook not coming out thinking he was doing something shady, but who knew Hyun-wook was in pain to die and live again. He had no strength to say anything. The Cobalt Gate that everyone ignored and misjudged the danger of it finally caused many casualties. Fortunately, thanks to the efforts of Corporal Choi Seona, Private First Class On Min-tae in an emergency situation was safely transferred to the military hospital. Thanks to this, Hyun-wook gave up the thought that he alone would protect everyone. The members of the support squad began to train to increase their strength to at least protect themselves, but 2 problems arose. After that day, Corporal Choi Seona started to bother Hyun-wook. This is a place with too many variables to proceed according to the plan. The second problem, Battalion Commander Kim Kang-seok asked him to take the officer position instead of the non-commissioned officer. Hyun-wook was also very sad. He cried in his heart wishing to be discharged. Now he was not surprised anymore. Squad leader Kim Kang-seok paid special attention to this Itaewon campaign. He aspired to create an ideal military culture that did not distinguish his rank and rose higher than ever. Why does everyone make him do what he doesn't want to do? Hyun-wook just had to helplessly tell himself to think again during the leave. 3 weeks later, on the first day off, the weather today is very beautiful. Hyun-wook's system showed a congratulatory message that he had met the special condition and collected a new skill. The skill is called Fire Charm, which helps him absorb metal faster and store more metal in space. Hyun-wook was still lying down in the bathroom. Now he would digest everything faster and no longer have to hug the toilet much. Hyun-wook washed his hands and went outside. The next confrontation with the monsters would be much harder. He had to be careful or he could lose his life like playing. He had to prepare everything carefully during this vacation. This was the time to change the future. Hyun-wook was in the bathroom, but as soon as he went out, he ran into an acquaintance. This person is Seona. She was dressed beautifully standing smoking next to the vending machine but couldn't light it. Seona saw him and asked if he had a lighter. Hyun-wook also realized that Seona had revealed her true self when he wasn't paying attention. Then the two of them took the train together. Seona tried to find something to talk to Hyun-wook. She asked about his parents, but Hyun-wook replied that his parents were no longer there. They died when he was young. Seona was silent and didn't know what else to ask. Hyun-wook felt that he was also a bit blunt. He enthusiastically told the story of his childhood that was a bit difficult and lonely, but after growing up he had more relatives like family. Seona asked who those people were. Hyun-wook remembered the past life he had colleagues and comrades like his relatives. Hyun-wook took the train to Yeongdeungpo. He planned to stay here for 4 days and 3 nights in this short vacation. He needed to prepare everything for the future and the first thing to prepare was money. Hyun-wook saw the announcement that Blue Tree was looking for player support. The owner of Blue Tree, Gordon Tracy, had assets worth thousands of billions at the present time. His dirty money flowed underground to bribe high-ranking officials and players, in order to buy and sell items gradually and help him completely control everything. There were many reasons for people to sell their souls to the devil, but the most important thing was still money. Although Hyun-wook currently did not have the ability to earn more money than Golden, he had to at least ensure that he would not be involved in his money game. He knew the big events that would happen in the future and the time and place to make money. That meant he only needed to invest earlier than others to still make a lot of money even with little capital. So when investing, he needed someone who would never betray him. He had to entrust someone who would keep their word even for the smallest promise. Hyun-wook entered a shabby apartment building. He walked up the stairs step by step. Two people were arguing and pushing each other when he entered. They stopped their argument when they saw him. The young man with white hair greeted Hyun-wook happily. He was Lee Won-chun. They had known each other for quite a long time. On the contrary, Hyun-wook was not very happy to see these two.